Cool. We are live. Welcome, everyone. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, and Theta TV. So today we got a great episode. We're excited to chat with Will and JP from MANTRA DAO. We got some lot of great questions for you guys, and I'm sure the community will have a lot of great questions. But I really appreciate you guys hopping on and becoming part of LunarCRUSH Live. So, tell us, maybe we'll start with Will. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about how you maybe got into crypto, and we can go to JP after that, and he can talk a little bit too.
Absolutely. First of all, great to be here. Thanks for having us. So I guess I have a bit of a non-traditional entrance into crypto that also kind of ties in with John as well. So I've been, pretty much back and forth within Asia and specifically China for the past 10 or so years, coming over to study, doing internships. I moved over full-time about 5.5, 6 years ago to Shanghai. And while I was there, I was actually working in sustainable agriculture for a couple of years. And then I was brought on to the VC arm for Anheuser-Busch InBev to launch a new category for them globally, focusing on the Asia market. And it was actually during that time that John and I had known each other in Shanghai as he was working on a master's there. And through his job, he was getting into blockchain and crypto, and us being friends, we started talking about it. And we kind of end up having this second life where we'd work our 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. jobs, and then from 8 p.m. until 3, 4 in the morning for about 6, 7, 8 months, we were researching what is this blockchain, crypto. It's back in 2016, so before things really blew up, hosting meetups in Shanghai, until we finally realized that it was a bit more interesting than our day jobs at the time. Even though I will say working for the VC arm for Anheuser-Busch is definitely a awesome job.
Lots of free beer
in the office. Yeah, exactly. Our office in Shanghai, was actually in a brew house, so it was a bit. It was perfect.
Wow.
So got into the space, and then John and I had quit to start our own company, and then we were actually brought onto another company called Trade.io at the time that did an ICO, and after that, the Chinese government said we can't do anything blockchain or crypto related. So about 2.5 years ago, we moved here to Hong Kong, and have been in the space since. Previously and more recently working for a licensed broker dealer in the U.S. that actually received the first and only license from the SEC to do tokenized securities. So they actually did like the Spencer Dinwiddie tokenization contract, which not sure if you guys saw that. And then brought on as advisors for Rio DeFi a couple months back, beginning of this year. And that's kind of where, we started brainstorming and thinking about, MANTRA DAO and, how we can, kind of make better what people were doing in the DeFi space, as there was still a lot of inefficiencies, high barriers to entry, roadblocks in terms of just people figuring it out. And that's kind of how we landed on, MANTRA DAO and building what we're building now.
Very, very cool. Wow. I mean, and InBev, like, I'm just thinking like that strategic arm back when like almost every single like small micro like brew spot was like probably being purchased, and you guys like weren't changing the names of anyone. I mean, holy cow, that must have been a busy time.
I mean, it was, it's pretty crazy because, trying to, of course, in China, the most consumed beer in the world is called Snow, which, isn't sold outside of China and most people have never heard of. But it's, pretty much like 3% water. So trying to introduce even just like an IPA to the Chinese market and to Asia was, no easy feat. And then, going for super high end category, which was kind of what I was brought in to do for InBev, was it just a bit before its time, I would say, but definitely very interesting and a way to look at the markets there.
Have the Chinese latched on to IPAs? What are they drinking?
So they did. So it was a bit fighting tooth and nail, but IPAs and a lot of the different categories are actually quite large there. And Goose Island, which is owned by InBev and kind of one of our flagships, entering into China, is now the largest craft beer brand globally. but also within China.
Wow.
So it's they're finally taken to it.
I remember hearing Stone Brewing went into Germany, into Munich, and then it bombed. It didn't work. They actually went out because the Germans were like completely not ready for it.
Yeah, to be honest, that would be probably the last market, knowing Germans, and John spent time in Germany, so he knows better than even I do. But Germans are very
particular,
particular and protective of their beer. So going in with an American beer into Germany is it's a bold strategy.
It is. It's funny.
Cool. And so JP, tell us a little bit about your background.
So on the crypto side, not too dissimilar from Will, since we've been working together since we Germans know what real beer is. Yes, German. Indeed. Jawohl. So anyway, most of the crypto side of things, Will and I have shared. I guess I can maybe step back a little bit before.
Yeah.
So I had a friend back in college. I went to school in Spain, actually. Did my undergrad at St. Louis University in Madrid, or San Luis, Madrid, and which was quite a cool experience. But I had a buddy back then called Trey Tomlinson. Shout out to Trey. He was like, "You should buy this Bitcoin thing. It's going up and it's really cheap and it's permissionless money and da da da." And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But it was only like $50 or something like that. So I was like, "Okay, I'll buy a couple." I was a poor college student at the time, so it was like beer money or Bitcoin. I chose beer. Yeah, tough call. I chose mostly beer money, unfortunately at the time, but still bought a couple. So not like anything life changing, but started like, okay, understanding what this whole like blockchain and crypto is. This is back in, I think, 2013, maybe 2012. And honestly kind of forgot about it. Didn't really have too much to do with it in my daily life for a while. But then when I was doing my master's in Germany, the first one in Germany and then the second one in Shanghai, we were like looking at all these different fintech companies and case studies. And I was like, okay, fintech's kind of cool. I was always still on a little bit more of a traditional like finance path at the time. So, when I got to China, in 2015, there was all sorts of like e-payments and WeChat and Alipay and all these kind of cool things that had just started opening up to foreigners. I mean, when I got there, everything was still in Chinese on the apps. So for most people now it's ubiquitous, but before it was like it took you an hour and a half to even sign up for the app. So most foreigners were like, screw this. I don't need it. I'm cool with my cash. But you very quickly realized like these things had some significant power. You could split bills at dinner, all easy. You could send money to friends. You could do all these different kind of cool things. Then that transitioned in my job at the bank that I started working at. So I worked at a bank called Guotai Securities. It's for most people outside of China is unheard of. But in China, it's like the Morgan Stanley of China, essentially. And I was like one of the first like white people, foreigners to ever work for that company. So when I got there, I mean, they just had like zero clue what to do with us. And they essentially were like, okay, like teach us how to do business in the West and teach us how to, give
very
a proper
general, easy statement right there, right?
Yeah.
A PowerPoint, just create a PowerPoint.
It was kind of like that. I mean, I showed up as an intern when I started, like suit and tie, and literally no one wore a tie. Like my boss started having to wear a tie because I was wearing a tie to the office. So it was just, it was just a totally different experience. I mean, it was awesome. I really enjoyed it, but it was totally different. Around that time, they started looking at kind of emerging technologies and how foreign investment banks were looking at them. And this was, anything from insurtech to digital payments to, blockchain and cryptocurrencies to all these different things, autonomous and electric vehicles. So we had this kind of research team that was created essentially to look at these different opportunities. And, given my increasing interest in both blockchain and crypto in general, I was like in charge of that part. I actually had a colleague who was like mining Ethereum at his desk at the bank, which he definitely should not have been doing. And trading like all the time at the bank. But shout out to Dr. Lee. Will knows him as well. Will knows him as well. He actually ended up working on a couple other crypto projects on the side. But so anyway, was getting kind of heads on into that pretty deeply. We hosted again meetups in Shanghai, and we did a meetup for Neo at the time, like when it was still Ant shares. So like really early days of that, and things were kind of like really popping off. And then kind of the rest is history. Similar path as Will. Moved down to Hong Kong in the beginning of 2018. Been working more on the crypto side in the beginning, and then moved a little bit back more into traditional when we were doing the tokenized securities and more traditional like capital raise. And now we're back on the crypto side with MANTRA DAO, which is pretty pure crypto play. It's DAO, it's DeFi. We have our own token, so it's definitely a lot more fun than the traditional side, I would say.
It's good to be back.
So obviously, you guys picked the right timing here to launch your project. I mean, even on our side, it's like there's not a day that goes by that we're not getting 10 to 20 DeFi projects to list on our site requests. Sure. And we go back to all the way back to I think it was 9 days ago when we added your project to our site, and probably second or third most requested project. What did Elon say? You ain't cool.
You ain't cool.
Love it.
You ain't cool unless you had to work your way around a bank firewall to work on your side gig. So true.
That dedication.
Yeah, right. But I mean, we probably had more requests to add MANTRA DAO than obviously the timing of Polkadot played into some of this, and there's a lot of requests, like forceful requests, almost threats. The community.
We got to shout out to Ray Santos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
we're super lucky with our community, our Sherpas. They've just since from day one, they've been super passionate and have nonstop been supportive of everything that we're doing. And it's it's pretty crazy because during our fundraise we raised from about 1,000 people from 81 countries, which is really, really, really amazing. And then within the last 2 weeks, it's over 10,000 now in terms of
nearly 10,000 addresses, 9,700 I just checked. But that includes exchange addresses, so I'm sure there's a lot more Sherpas out there.
Was that in the U.S.?
It's an amazing thing to see.
We did not offer to the U.S.
Yeah, so no U.S., no China.
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole for a completely different day on like the U.S. and falling behind and all that.
Well, we're both Americans, so we would like to come back to see our friends and family. So it's an easy solution to that, and it's just not allowing them into the token sale. Right,
exactly. So tell us a little bit about. So it's 2018. You guys are in Hong Kong. The market then. That's the beginning of crypto winter. And, that was, at least for us, that was just when we were just kind of starting to build LunarCRUSH. And it was an interesting time to start building because everyone, coming out a year after that, everyone's like, I thought the Bitcoin was went away. Didn't this go away? And that was here in the US where it was like, what are you talking about? People are building satellites and shooting them into space to keep the network going. I think it's okay. But what was it like over there during that time period? Because just from some of the ground over there, it seemed like it just never stopped. It just kept going.
It was insane. 2018, I think me particularly, but also Will, we were constantly on a plane, hardly ever in Hong Kong, going all over the place, conferences and, events and speaking gigs and all this different stuff. So it was crazy. Definitely not sustainable personally and probably professionally. But yeah, definitely the timing on that to set up a kind of an advisory business wasn't amazing. But we did have a lot of people who were interested. We did fairly all right, to be honest. And obviously everyone at that time was just money grab. Everyone with any sort of idea was trying to, raise money for it through a token offering. So, that wasn't obviously great, but it was an interesting time for sure. Still over here, you still had regardless of what was happening in the market, I mean, there was people that were still pretty hyped about everything, and you still had a growing ecosystem, particularly here in Hong Kong, that continues to grow today. And there's like kind of emerged as some like focal key figures in the space over here. We have like Genesis Block, if you've heard of those guys. They're kind of like an OTC desk, but they also do like over-the-counter spot transactions at the shops. You can go get HKD in cash, and you can have a beer, and they do events and this kind of stuff. So that's like a good meeting point for a lot of people. Obviously, you have FTXs here. These are all some of our the people that we know and work with. So you've really seen kind of like a consolidation over the last couple of years, but it's still the same figures. It's still the same people, and that's like, I guess, a good thing, because that they're in it for the real reasons.
Yeah, and the nice part with, again, we'd stepped away from kind of the crypto side, and now that we're back, kind of fully into it from our last, more capital markets focus. It's awesome actually seeing people that are still in the space from, 2017, 2018. So, a lot of people that we're now working with and partners of ours, it's reconnecting with them and realizing that, like, oh shit, I haven't seen you in, 2-3 years. Like, it's good to see that you're still in the space. You guys are still powering through. You made it through crypto winter. So that's actually been a really nice thing to kind of see who survived, and end up, being able to work with people that you have these personal relationships that you've seen at conferences and, have worked with before. So that's actually been a really, nice thing about things turning back around now.
Yeah, it's fun to see people and say, "Oh, you made it through. Thank God."
Yeah, exactly. You survived.
Barely.
Yeah, I'm excited to go back to the conferences. Once things get back to normal a little bit, and see everyone, and actually see kind of what some of this attendance would look like. Because I feel like if you had a crypto conference right now in one of these major cities, it would probably be insane.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm just excited so I can stop having to do 7 AMAs a week.
Yep.
My fingers are getting tired from all the typing. I'm just kidding. The AMAs are fun. Yeah. I like the live streams better though. These are a little bit more free flowing.
Easier talking than just constantly typing.
For sure.
No presentations here. We don't do that. So we'd love to hear I'd love to hear just about the project in general, about Mantra DAO, and understand what it is, what it does. Obviously, we've gone through a lot of things, and I mean, you talk about staking, lending, governance. Is kind of looks like the 3 pillars of the project. I'd love to hear more about those.
Sure. So on the Mantra DAO side, essentially, we kind of again spun this out, or kind of incubated it through Rio DeFi, which had some plans for doing a lot of these different types of offerings that we're going to be doing, but in a little bit more centralized fashion. So they had an idea to do this kind of like Bitcoin-backed stablecoin of sorts, with this whole lending idea, which is quite cool. But then as we were thinking about it, it really made sense to kind of spin it off into this DAO structure, which we believe is kind of the future of how companies will operate. So that actually goes to the timing thing a little bit, because Rio has been around since September of last year. So almost going on 1 year now. So it was called Rio DeFi from the beginning. So like they've been doing DeFi for a while now, and just our timing just ended up like lining up perfectly, both with like DeFi bull run and also just the hype and insane craziness surrounding Polkadot. And actually we launched very conscientiously on the 18th, which is the day of dot transferability, for a reason. So we could align ourselves with that. And that's why, a lot of people ask us like, oh, you're on Polkadot, why are you an ERC20 token, for example? And we're like, well, we wanted to hit this market when we can. And, obviously we don't want to necessarily wait for the mainnet to make sure that we can start building in our community and, building out some of our offerings. But anyway, so back to like what we're all about in terms of the staking and lending and governance and whatnot. So, obviously we've taken a lot of inspiration from many kind of existing projects out there. I don't think we're necessarily reinventing the wheel on anything, but we are kind of combining all of these different features into a kind of a unique model and a unique package, I would say, that combines, the staking and the lending with, this whole governance, community governed model, where the token holders have the ability to kind of say how we develop the platform, how we grow it. And we are starting with the staking side of things. So we're essentially going to become validators for many of the top POS blockchains and projects out there. Made an announcement yesterday that within the next 2 weeks, we'll have at least 5 partnership validator announcements coming out. So we've been working, pretty hard behind the scenes, building out these relationships and partnerships, as well as deploying capital into running some of these different validator nodes. So the foundation is going to have, all these different validator nodes, which then will be revenue generating. People can nominate and delegate to us, and then they can earn additional staking rewards through the OHM token. So that's like the first focal piece, right? So the play is attract as much assets and as much attention and as much people that can come to stake with us. And we want to be a top 5 validator for any chain that we validate for. Obviously, that's going to take time, but that's kind of like the internal goal and mindset that we have. And we want to have 20, 30, 40, 50 different validators that we're going to be running. That over time, we'll have a significantly large pool of assets that are owned by the DAO, essentially owned by the token holders. So then that moves into the lending side of things. So the staking is like the saving side of things, and the lending is a little bit more like the other financial product that we're creating. And we're going to have kind of like a multi-phase lending product where you'll have the proprietary crypto to crypto collateralized lending. Not too dissimilar from MakerDAO, but we want to make sure that it's cross-chain so that you can use collateral from Ethereum blockchain, or you can use collateral from Polkadot, or you can use collateral from any of the Cosmos coins, or whatever, Ripple, Bitcoin, whatever it's going to be. And then we'll also have integrations of kind of existing Ethereum lending protocols as well. So this is talking about like Compound or Aave or some of these other ones. So that'll be all directly on the MANTRA DAO platform. So then it's kind of like a one-stop shop, for example. So you don't have to necessarily have 10 different apps. I mean, that's one of the biggest things with a lot of our friends who are in the traditional space or who just never have gotten into crypto. Actually, like a lot of them came into the MANTRA DAO token offering because we're like, yo, you guys should get in on this. It's going to be awesome. And they're like, what's this all about? And how do I get a wallet and all these different kinds of stuff? And then they're like, why do I have to open, 10 different accounts to do all these different things that you're telling me to do? And I'm like, well, that's just kind of crypto for now. But so we want to make it more streamlined and have the ability to have all your assets in one place in a non-custodial manner and be able to offer these kind of like financial services products that are the savings and the lending side. And then
I got to interrupt. You sort of just blew my mind a little bit, because there's not a day that goes by that we're hit by someone we know that says, hey, this Bitcoin thing, what do I do with it? Like, tell me about it. Teach me about it. Should I get in? And there's this kind of, here, especially in the US, there's this sort of de facto thing of like, oh, well, go open up a Coinbase account or a Binance account and start buying your Bitcoin. You just connect your bank account. To start your crypto journey within a DeFi project is just super fascinating. It's just such new, potentially even less friction if this is done right than what has happened. Because so far, look, setting up an account on an exchange and doing the traditional thing that's been going on for the past decade here, it's proven to not be easy enough for the general public. And so I'm interested to kind of hear more about that, like, the UX side of things, because DeFi is complicated for a lot of people too. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And that's, that's definitely been one of our, main focuses is, making sure that we have a, user-friendly UI, UX, making it so, because again, with DeFi, it's, being able to, bank the unbanked or, break wealth inequality, be able to offer these traditional financial services to people with smartphones. So, again, when we talk about staking and, just putting in terms of, having like a savings account, but instead of you making, 0.1% APR, and the bank keeping, the large majority of it when they, then lend out your money or invest it. But saying that, you can keep those, 5 to 20% APRs or, with us, 88.88%. It kind of blows their mind, and saying that just come on and be able to buy $100 worth of crypto and just put it aside, having a savings account or staking, and be able to earn a decent amount. And for people with $100, that maybe make $10 a month in in some countries and areas of the world, that can be pretty substantial for them and their families. But of course, the big thing now is making it so it's not, I need to set up a MetaMask account and then figure out how to make it into a Chrome extension and then sync it with this. It's it should be just setting up an account, giving your phone number, being able to buy right on the platform, and then in like 2 clicks take the crypto that you just bought and then stake it, and make it as easy and straightforward as possible. Which, I mean, that's still definitely lacking. And even as someone within the space, I try to navigate a lot of these DeFi platforms, and I definitely get frustrated.
It's complicated.
It takes a lot to figure it out. Yeah, I mean, it's really not the most friendly thing, and there's not there's not great definitions for what different clicks of the button actually do. And even things like Uniswap, it's funny talking with friends like, well, I have it here and I can click to make the trade, but I don't know if if this is actually going to go through. I don't know what I accidentally clicked. Like I just need to exit out before I make a mistake. So there's definitely, I mean, there's a huge gap in the market in terms of making things that are,
we have not been telling our friends to go trade on Uniswap.
Yeah, definitely not.
As much as I love Uniswap, definitely not for the newbie.
Sure. I'd love to hear Wolfman Knows One, their question, an answer to their question. How long will the 88.88% last? And a lot of people on the outside would say that's too good to be true. Is this some sort of scheme? Like, what's going on? How does anyone offer 88.88%? So tell us how that works.
I'm glad he asked that, because I was actually going to hop in when Will was saying that. Just because it's not that is not forever. We do not plan on having 88.88% forever. It is a promotional rate. But essentially, we're trying to precondition individuals to stake with us, because again, we're an ERC20 token. We're not doing on-chain staking. All of our staking at present is done on exchanges. So currently, you can stake on BitDump Global and BitMax. And we'll be launching staking on OKEx, which is another one of our exchange partners, shortly. And we'll also be offering a decentralized staking method with another partner that we'll be announcing in a little bit. I think either this week or next week. So there's another partnership. But essentially, we want to precondition all these people to staking. And when we launch our on-chain staking, in the imminent future, we'll have a what's called like a decaying growth model that will start pretty high at the beginning. So the earlier stakers will be, proportionally over rewarded than, the later ones. But that rate will, decrease over time. So 88.88% is not forever. We do think that the earliest stakers on the on-chain staking will actually be higher in the beginning. So like proper yield farming kind of rates. So it could be pretty crazy, especially once with token appreciation as well. But it's not forever. I mean, this is a couple months, not a forever thing. And of course, we have a portion of our tokens that are set out for these staking rewards. 30% of the entire token supply is for staking rewards. So that's a significant amount of money. We have 888 million tokens, and 1/3 of that's going into staking rewards. So that's pretty significant. But we also have like a buyback method for the token as well, from our asset staking rewards as well. So like 50% of our like foundations assets that we get for staking rewards will be used to buy back OHM on the market, and then we can redistribute and rebalance and whatnot to refill buckets as needed. But yeah, so I think the 88.88% has another couple months, but it's not a forever thing.
Is there like a cap? Like, is there like a minimum that it ends up at some point based upon a certain number of assets being staked, or how does that work?
So right now, the 88.88% is just for OHM staking, right? So it's a little bit different when you talk about the additional rewards being staked for, let's say you're staking DOT or Kusama with us. Shout out to Kusama. So let's say you're staking one of those with us, and you're making, your 10 to 20% APR. Depending on your karma level, which is essentially like your internal score, your terminal credit rating, for doing good things for the community. You'll have an additional bonus in potentially paid in Ohm. So that could range anywhere. I mean, anywhere from 50% of the staking reward up to 100%. So up to an additional like double of your interest, potentially even more. We're still working on some of the final metrics there, but it will not necessarily be the 88.88% kind of thing. So like it really just depends on the other blockchain asset that you're staking. Some of them are going to be lower, some will be higher, and you'll make it in the nominal value of whatever those rewards are going to be, essentially. So let's say you're making $100 on one, and you have a 50% karma score or whatever, you'd only make $50 additional in Ohm.
Gotcha.
But that would be on one asset. If you could do that on multiple assets, and you're getting, an additional significant amount annually on all your assets.
So karma score, this was fascinating. I was reading about this on your site, and that score is determined how, and this is actually something we've been talking about on our site as well, because there's certain influencers that have a super positive impact on various coins, and there's some that do not. And some interact a lot and some do not interact a lot. So I'd be curious how that comes together.
So karma has essentially, like, at least in my mind, and the way that we're kind of thinking about it internally, is that it has like kind of two tracks. One is the really like the gamified, more qualitative side of things, which is referring friends and staking and like doing certain things which are just helping the DAO and are not necessarily so related 100% to your like in an actual like mathematical credit score, right? Of course they're interlinked, but you have to have like specific like risk scores and all these different things that are a lot more like mathematical. So that's like the more gamified track, which is just to have a leaderboard so people can see how they're ranked within the DAO and how they're stacking up against their peers and et cetera, et cetera. Then you'll have your like more mathematical, data driven, like super analytical piece, which you necessarily won't even see, but this is going to be how we can determine, your credit behavior. This will be based off of, your proper staking behavior. How long are you staked? How are you interacting with the staking side of things on the platform? How are you taking out loans? Are you paying it back on time? Like this type of thing. So there's kind of two tracks. One sense is really like more quantitative and data driven, and the other side is there's a little bit more like fun involved. But both are equally important, I think, and we need both sides of it, because karma score is a way to get people incentivized and get people to have some competition within the system. Ideally to make them stake more, ideally to make them vote more. All these different things earn you karma, and they all help the system. So the more active participation that we have, the better it is for the entire system. That being said, we also have a lot of data that we're going to be able to gather from these different actions that can then be used to make these kind of tailored financial products. Particularly, like one thing that we're really looking at is the under collateralized lending. So that's a pretty like new thing in crypto. I know Ave's done a couple loans like that, a couple under collateralized flash loans, which is awesome. And actually, one of the things I think is cool for us is that we'll be able to essentially gather data from when we integrate those platforms as well, before we actually launch it ourselves.
That's awesome. Just to kind of segue into lending a little bit, because you're talking about staking, and that's kind of the first piece of where you want to go. Obviously, you have to establish the customer base. Where does, just in your vision, where does that tipping point happen where it's like, okay, now it's time for lending?
When the product's ready. No. So again, like the staking is the focal point for the time being, because we really want to get, like, that's one, revenue generating from day one. It makes money from day one, and it really is a way to kind of latch onto these different communities to grow our overall Sherpa community, our DAO, et cetera. So someone was asking me yesterday, like, why do you want to give an Ohm to all these different people who are going to be staking with us? Because how is that going to help the token price?
Last piece right there? You just cut out just a touch.
Sure. So I was saying, someone was asking about, like, how does this help the token price if you have a validator for all these different POS blockchains? Well, if you're running 5, 10, 15, 20 different validators, you're obviously working with these different communities. So you're going to have people from all these various communities coming on to dominate and delegate our MANTRA DAO nodes. So they become aware about us as a platform. They become aware about us as a company, as a foundation, as a business, and then they'll potentially stake other different assets with us. They'll potentially take part in other different services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But additionally, because again, we use 50% of those staking rewards daily to buy back Ohm on the market, we're reducing the circulating supply of Ohm, at least on the open market. So that's kind of one of the key points for us. The more validators that we have, obviously the larger our community will be, the broader the awareness will be about MANTRA DAO, but it also has an economical impact on the price as well, or the token.
And that's kind of in with Oz's question here. Hi, is there any plans for burning mechanism or buyback? You were saying about 50% of the coins on the open market. I mean, is that the strategy? Is it 50%? Is there going to be some other mechanism to auto burn? What's going on there?
Yeah, so there's a couple other burn features. There's the MANTRA pool. So MANTRA pool is like our lottery gamified thing, which I think is a big sleeper for the product. Which is from those staking rewards, you have 50% for the buyback. You have 25% that goes into the MANTRA pool. So every week, 25% of our staking rewards will go into this pool, and that could be from DOT, Kusama, all these other different assets that we're going to be validating for. I can say one.
Announcements coming soon.
I can say one for sure, just because I think we've talked about it, but we'll be a validator for Tezos. So people will be able to stake Tezos with us, or I guess we'll be baking it. But anyway, so Tezos is one of them, for example.
Yeah.
Let's just say you have this pool of all these different assets, right? And 25% of those assets will go into this pool weekly that someone can burn Ohm to get into. So you burn one Ohm, you get one entry into the MANTRA pool. Also, if you have a high enough karma score, you actually get immediate entries into all the different pools on a weekly basis. The other burning mechanism is the opening and closing of CDPs, which is on the lending side. So opening and closing of collateralized debt positions, you have to burn some Ohm to open, and you have to burn some Ohm to close, essentially. So those are two of the features that I think with scale will be pretty significant on the amount of Ohm being burned. I do also think that the MANTRA pool is going to be a big sleeper. Is that Pina?
Sorry, I have a few dogs here that are now awake, moaning and groaning.
Add them to the stream. Let's get them on camera.
Well, here's one right here.
Oh,
this is Chloe.
All right.
And then the other little ones, where are they? Oh, they're running around. I'll try to grab them. One just celebrated their first birthday on Sunday, and then the other little devil is about 3 months old.
That's awesome. A lot you gotta get a dog in quarantine right now.
Here we go. Here's one of them. This one just had its first birthday.
Oh,
that's Luda.
Yeah, and then Pina,
Nice.
this little devil,
is
like a 3.5-month-old English bulldog.
Wow, 3
drowning
dogs.
the dogs over there.
Man,
I love it.
It's a busy house.
I mean,
So
kind
anyway,
of talking through this stuff a little bit, it just, kind of to go off on a little bit of a tangent. It's, obviously some of the stuff that you're explaining through it is the tokenomics of what you guys have put together. And it's almost at this point where, everyone's got a shot now at kind of outperforming what has historically been put in place by whether it be governments or sovereign entities or other products, right? And it's super interesting to hear your guys' approach, and but you can't help but think about some of the people out there, like we were just talking about, where we can't even get people to figure out how to move from Coinbase to Atomic Wallet, right? They're trying to figure out how to move stuff around. So I mean, what is your guys' thoughts a little bit on making some of this stuff easy? I mean, is it going to get to a spot where you're like, hey, I need to buy a new car and I've got X amount of Bitcoin and I'm coming to you guys to say, what's the rate I can get? What does this look like? Can you automatically pay this payment for me, with something like a Tezos if I'm staking there? Is that kind of the creative finance that you guys are looking to build with something like this, where it's like one click, I now get lent based on the karma score and based on what I have?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we do want to make it as sleek and as nicely designed as possible. So we even said on one of our decks, like simple as one click and obtaining a loan, right? So this is definitely like the direction that we're going to move into. Of course, it's that's it's not going to be day one, right?
Sure.
Just to manage everyone's expectations. This is going to take time.
Our first beta didn't even work. We were like at dinner, and one of our developers like launched it, and we're like, it's live, and then it just didn't work. So it's like it takes time. It takes time to build
tech products always take time, for sure, and iterations and improvements and whatnot. But we do have the mindset from day one to make it as simple and easy as possible. And Will's been working on a lot of the UI UX just for that, and has looked at a lot of the various existing platforms out there to kind of see what we liked and what we didn't like, and streamline it as much as possible. I know we have some like screenshots floating around of some of the initial snapshots, but I think it's going to look even better when we launch. And some of the other things that I think are important for us are just making it easy to be able to get the non-crypto native in. So this is working with or having integrations with fiat channels that people can use their debit card or credit card or bank transfer to be able to get on and into the platform simply and easily. So that's one thing that we're working on. Additionally, like I think one of the things that's really tricky for a lot of people is the whole wallet system and like keys and all of that. So
Right.
for certain individuals, they're totally used to it, and that's fine, and they can go the whole crypto mnemonic phrases and making sure it's all secure and saving your private keys and whatnot. But for other people, you want to have like it's called like zero auth, essentially, where you have you can log in through your Google Mail or your Facebook or whatever, and it's associated to that kind of account. Obviously, for some people, that's not anonymous enough, which is fine. But for for your uncle or your aunt who like doesn't have any idea what they're doing, that's probably okay, as long as it's done in a safe enough manner. And that's a pretty important thing for us. So these are all just some of the things that we're like working on and thinking of, and we'll have some integrations for those types of things sooner rather than later.
I'd love to see Dustin McDaniel's question from YouTube answered on here. So he says,
Dustin's our homie, so yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I was just looking at that one.
So, and this is a big deal. I mean, like this is something I remember when Tezos came out, it was like, no way, there's on-chain governance and voting, and how does that all come together? And it's complicated and can be messy, but important. Helps you hopefully not end up with too many forks of your code someday and all that fun stuff. But tell us about governance with plans you might have in place.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, again, the thing that we were really focused on was, not recreating the issues that we've seen in the past. Voting has always been a pain in the ass for a lot of people. I think the one time that not maybe the one time, but one of the more recent times that I've seen it really work was on the redenomination of DOT, for example, where it was a community-led initiative first on Kusama, which then went into an on-chain voting process for Polkadot holders. And I think there was a significant amount of people that voted in this redenomination, and the overwhelming favorite ended up winning, which was the 100x split. So that really is pretty simple. Like it's like a substrate Polkadot governance palette that we'll model after, but we do want to make it as easy as delegating your staked assets immediately on the platform, or your staked ohm immediately on the platform, to be able to vote within our system. So it's like one of the sidebars actually, at least on the web.
And that also,
web app.
yeah, I mean, that also plays into like the UI UX part as well. And with Dustin's question, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in terms of here's how the votes work. If you want to put forth a vote, here's the section where you put out what the vote would entail, or you upload in terms of what it would look like. And then for us, you need to put 100 USD worth of ohm locked in order to actually put it through. And again, it's I think a 2-click process in terms of typing in what you want changed, locking that ohm up, and then submitting the proposal. And then in terms of voting, it's you'll have a bar that says these are the different proposed votes. You can expand them so you can see what's going on, and then depending on how many ohm you have staked, it's just click of a button, vote in favor or against. So again, playing into the user friendliness, and again, some of the other traditional or previous DAOs, the voting process is again bit, tedious, confusing, not necessarily straightforward. So no, we try to build upon those previous examples to make it, again, just very easy and straightforward for people that don't need to go digging on different platforms or a multi-step process.
Is there a certain amount
and I guess that
to be a validator? So like for
Excuse me?
Tezos, I think it's what 8,000 Tezos you need to be a baker.
There's the various rules depending on the different validators. So on certain ones, for example, Tezos, like James Anderson, one of our council members, is a big Tezos holder. So he'll be delegating all of his Tezos to the MANTRA DAO. Shout out to James. But on other ones, we do have, we have actually, put significant capital investments into a lot of these different nodes that we're going to be running, both from the foundation and the team. So one thing that we like to do when we approach a lot of these different potential validator projects is have a team stake in the assets that we're going to be purchasing. So the foundation will purchase, obviously the bulk, but then, all the team members will throw in a little bit as well. That will be then, again, delegating, putting skin in the game to the MANTRA DAO. So across the board, it's pretty much every single one. There's going to be team members who are supporting our own nodes.
I love
but
it.
It really just depends. It really just depends. Like, for example, like I was on a call yesterday with someone from Tomo Chain, and to run one of their master nodes, there's 150 slots only, and to run a master node, I think the minimum right now is like 60,000 Tomo or 65,000 Tomo, and Tomo's like $1, so it's not an insignificant amount of money.
Right.
But that's just one example, So it really just depends. Other chains are a little bit different. Other chains you'll need one to start it. But again, to be on the top, you have to obviously get a lot of delegation. So we have some pretty cool, exciting ones coming up.
Nice. Exciting.
Including pretty good deals where, sometimes they agreed, because we're early as a validator, the foundation will then delegate a certain amount to us to make sure that our node is, a significant and large node. So that's one of the things that we've been working on to get some pretty good deals on a lot of these projects.
That's great. There's a lot of just that piece to what you just said right there, and the sustainability of starting something and the longevity of it to make sure that the partnership's in place and there's an agreement on both sides. It sounds like you guys have really done a lot as far as just relationship building and infrastructure around what you're building and the trust. And I think that probably has come from, the amount of time that you guys have spent in this space and you came back to this space. So, I'm sure those partners are excited to have you back and working on this.
Yeah, I don't want to make it seem like we left. We're definitely always still here. Just a little bit more like on the more blockchain-y side, rather than like pure crypto play. But yeah, without a doubt, I mean, it's definitely a show of continuing to build relationships in the space, and we're connected. We know the people. We've been here. We've done it. Not everything always worked out as well as we expected it to work out. With some of the previous ventures, but we've learned from those experiences, and obviously these are all getting taken into how we view MANTRA DAO and how we're operating and executing now. I mean, we've been around for literally 2 weeks. Today was 2 weeks since TGE. We're listed on 11 exchanges, 11 plus exchanges. I mean, they just list us. We don't even know if they're going to list us sometimes. And we have some pretty exciting announcements coming up, and we're continuing to build out our tech platform. We've already had a first major FUD campaign, within the first week, coordinated FUD. So these types of things they're exciting. You're not going to make friends with everyone, but we try to be as friendly as we can in the space, not make enemies necessarily. We try to work with everyone. We have a very staunch anti-maximalist perspective on this, which is why we want to run all these different validators, which is why we want to include all these different assets in as collateral within our lending. And we want to support not only the Polkadot ecosystem, but Cosmos, but all these other different blockchain protocols as well. So this is just kind of how we see the please FUD so I can load my bags more. Buy the dip.
You'll see more of that as
you grows. Yeah, the FUD, you need to have it's going to be there, and I think it was early on, and it's like the anti-maximalist, but like I think CZ or someone said early on, there's going to be FUD, no matter what you're doing, and no matter what business that you're in. I mean, it's just the world that we live in now, and if you have a roadmap and you're executing against that, and you're growing and you're feeling good, and there's good feedback from your community, then that's all you need to focus on, because there's always going to be people, and it's part of the good part about crypto is how passionate everyone is about their project and what they're working on, and they want to win, and competitiveness is good to a certain extent. But for me, it's we're all in this space, and if you're in this space and you're trying to grow it, you're probably more aligned with the way that I think versus someone that's not in the space and not trying to grow it. So there could be a little bit more of a collaboration between projects and openness. I think that would probably be a good thing. But we're humans, we're competitive. This is what we do.
For sure. And I think
that's the beauty with with being so early in the space as well. I mean, DeFi specifically is still a couple weeks, months old in terms of really picking up. So no one's really a competitor. Any comparables are just potential partners. There's plenty of space within it, globally. And that's the beauty of it is we can talk with anyone, even if they're doing similar service offerings to us, and find ways to work with them. Mm-hmm. And that's it's you can't really do that in a lot of industries, but we're lucky enough that we can, and that's definitely the approach. And some people are a bit different, but at least I think that the large majority of people have the same views.
So I got a technology question. So a lot of DeFi projects are built on Ethereum. And what was that like, that decision? I see your Parity Substrate for Polkadot. What did that look like? What did that journey look like? Why not Ethereum? Why Polkadot?
Well, I think not that we have anything necessarily against Ethereum, but going back to the example of Uniswap, I mean, people are paying massive gas fees, to transact on Ethereum, and it's expensive now, and it's not easy, and it hasn't been scalable. And maybe ETH 2.0 will change this. I hope it does. But for the time being, it has its limitations, especially on the kind of like the cross-chain interoperability side of things. Whereas Polkadot has, at least shown to present that it has potential to solve a lot of these different issues, through its kind of unique model for both sharding and governance with the parachain concept. So Rio DeFi, which is the the builder of Rio Chain, built a substrate chain, and essentially plans to become a parachain within the Polkadot ecosystem as well. So essentially, it offers a lot of different features that we believe will be useful for building DeFi products, which is cross-chain interoperability, which is all these different types of kind of like atomic swaps, much more scalable, low transaction fee model. We expect to have significant amounts of transactions, particularly on lending and borrowing and all these different things within our system. So paying exorbitant gas fees to move your Ohm token all over the place is not going to really work in our model. It'd be a big hindrance. So these are all things that we need to work with. So I think the two biggest things are obviously it needs to be low cost, it needs to be cheap, it needs to be scalable, and then we need to have this kind of cross-chain interoperability piece. Because again, we're not just working with Polkadot projects. Yep. We're not, we're working with Cosmos projects. We're going to incorporate, Tezos. We're going to have all these different other ones, which have their own kind of blockchain protocols that need to be able to be interchanged and interoperated with. So that's like a critical part of MANTRA DAO. And that's kind of why we went in this direction. Will and I are both Polkadot ambassadors as well, which is just like a voluntary thing that we help support the ecosystem, which is how I got this dub shirt.
Mine landed in Hong Kong, so now the post service needs to drop it off at some point. Mine's definitely cooler.
Except for I'm about to steal it.
Good luck.
Nice.
But I mean, the cross-chain thing too is just what's been missing pretty much across the board. Yes. That's always been what's talked about even back in 2017, 2018 was what's going to be the big cross-chain and how is this going to actually work. And now we're finally coming to market with a lot of these that again took years to build. But I think that's why we're starting to see so much coming into all the space is people are starting to realize that holy shit, we can actually run proper cross-chain services, which again wasn't able to be done easily, or for some people at all previously. So that's I mean, definitely a major part with how we're building and kind of our decision into that.
Yeah, that is not an easy problem to solve, and I think people have been trying to solve it for a while, and it's kind of proved itself because some of the smartest people, I mean, like Lightning, and some of the smartest people have been trying to solve this, and they haven't been able to. So I think it just took a little bit of time, took more people in the space, and once we get there, and as we're getting there now, huge growth opportunity.
Yeah,
for sure, and it's perfect for DeFi.
Yeah,
very cool. It's great to hear. I'd love to go through a few social metrics off of our site as maybe a last part of this segment,
cool.
And just chat about your community a little bit and some of your strategies around that.
That's our favorite thing to chat about.
Perfect. Love it. Yeah. So let me share my screen here. Joe, can you see my screen?
Yep, you're up.
Cool. So we've got LunarCRUSH.com up, our markets page, and if I scroll down a little bit here, we already see it. There is MANTRA DAO.
Lucky number 13.
Yeah, so you're 13, and I have this table filtered by social volume. So I mean, let's think about this here. We have a project that's been live for a couple weeks that is the 13th highest social volume as of right this second.
It's pretty good company.
It's really good.
Definitely.
And so today there's been 2,347 unique mentions about MANTRA DAO. And there's been over 2 million social engagements, which what that means is it's kind of like deeper level interaction. Like if we're talking about comments, retweets, things like that, upvotes on Reddit. It's really, if we dive in, I think I get the page up here. Yep. Just to point out a few of the other metrics, like our Galaxy score is a combined metric that just looks at MANTRA DAO. It doesn't look at relative to any other coins. And it looks at, and it's early because we just started tracking this, I think 9 days ago. But overall, really healthy. I mean, if you're above a 60, you're healthy and you're consistently doing real well. AltRank looks at MANTRA DAO relative to the entire market. And so it's looking at combined social and market activity. I mean, it was number one right out the gate, which was insane. We haven't seen that. This MANTRA DAO and Polkadot were the only two projects that we've seen do that right away. So that says a lot. And when you look at it overall, I mean, it moves up, it moves down. What's beautiful about this is you end up seeing when social activity is super high, something can rank really well before a price move. And so what we see here is, I mean, again, there's 2,000 coins in the market here. You haven't been above, I think, at the worst point, you haven't been above 270. So already doing really well, very healthy. When we look at social metrics, this is per hour, this data here. So 100 plus mentions per hour seems to be like a typical scenario here. You've traded up posted up as high as 345 posts per hour. So these are people mentioning your ticker, your name. This is great. This is really good. Great activity. And you look at the contributors on an hourly basis. These are unique individuals posting about you, not the number of posts, but the actual individuals. As high as 339 people per hour posting. So really healthy start. And would love to hear a little more about just what are your strategies to involve the community. And it's also really interesting as that relates to governance, decentralized governance owned by the community that's constantly talking about a project. So just
that's
curious,
good.
what exactly do you guys plan to do with with your social efforts?
I mean, I think we've been fortunate that we've had a really amazing support base so far. We've again seen our token holders grow from 1,000 to nearly 10,000, probably more in less than 2 weeks. So that's 10x in 2 weeks, and just in terms of the number of people who are actually holding it, which again is also great. But we need to have people who talk about us. We have a very active community on Telegram. We also tend to be very active on Telegram as well. The team and the people working on the project. I have so many messages that I just can't even barely begin to get to all of them. But we try our best to remain active with the community and hear their feedback and listen to what their comments and concerns are. So this is all super important for us. And it's also helped that we've had some people who really like Mr. Business Intelligence. Shout out to A Double, shout out to Pentoshi, shout out to Johnny Zcash. Like all these people, there's tons of them. Crypto's Batman. I mean, these guys, Trader Lenny, Trader XO. I mean, all these guys, Nick Kraples. Like obviously I know all these people. At least from crypto. I don't necessarily know them personally. Some of them, yes, but they've all been really, really big supporters of us, and share a lot about what our updates are and how we're doing. And they have big communities and they have big reaches, and that obviously helps us. So this is like a critical part. We try to be very active on the different socials as well, but we're still a small team. I mean, we don't have a massive in-house marketing team. Like right now, it's essentially Will and myself doing the Twitter. We just got someone in to help us with this, so it's not like we have this massive workforce just like shilling tweets left, right, and center. We really just have like we're a small team at the moment, and it's everyone wears many hats.
All hands on deck for sure.
Yeah, so that kind of thing is great to see, that it's been really organic in nature. And anyone who was a crypto influencer, a crypto Twitter person who shills us now, like they all invested in the project. We had someone claiming that we're like just paying all these people, but like no, they actually invested. That was a critical thing. Some of them substantial amounts of money. So that's something that we are happy and proud about. And then again, this kind of community focused or community first approach is something where we want to create like DeFi for the masses rather than DeFi for either the very technologically savvy or the one who has the deepest pockets, and they can just earn all the farming yield from some of these different protocols, whereas like the average person is going to go in there and get wrecked. So we want to be for the people.
That also goes into what John was mentioning before about doing 7 AMAs a week. Pretty much within the last month and a half, we've been doing multiple AMAs across the board with different communities, different languages, and that's played a big part. As now I think we have 12 different language supports on Telegram, and constantly growing. So I think the big thing is also just tapping into new communities, pretty much from all corners of the world, to share what we're doing, get them into into our Sherpas family, and that's kind of played a really big part as well. Just to be able to again reach as many people as possible that just doing traditional ad space type doesn't really cut it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the one thing that we've kind of found, and that's part of the reason we started LunarCRUSH, is to look at community and how it grows. And what we've realized is you can't sustainably fake engagement over time. Sure, you can go and you can create a spike and you can potentially pay for a lot of engagement, but you can't consistently do that over time. And so for the community to be able to come in and see what you guys are doing, and John, that was no joke. I mean, to hit the #1 alt rank right out the gate, very, very, very difficult. And especially right now with the quantity of noise that's out there. So definitely give your guys a pat on the back, especially if you guys are the ones out there pounding the pavement with Telegram and Twitter. So really, really amazing job.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, we've seen
not too much sleep recently, but it's definitely worth it.
It's great.
The DeFi projects are really just the amount of social activity the last, like I'd say 2 to 3 weeks. When we'd have our alt rank filter on here, we'd see maybe 1 or 2 DeFi projects for the last few months in the top 10. And like yesterday, all 10 were DeFi. So like there's a huge shift moving on right now. But I just shared the top 1-day influencers, by the way, if you wanted to check that out on our Twitter here. So we actually, we justify influence really objectively. We get this question a lot, like, well, what makes someone objectively influential? And it's funny because, you've got like, I'm going to go back to your page here. There's 3 factors that we look at. We look at engagement. So out of all the posts that come from that account, how much engagement is there in those posts? And then we look at how much activity is there for an account. So if you're posting once a month, you're not going to rank very well, especially on social channels. And then we look at the growth of popularity. So like, this is not just a popularity contest, but it does matter. If your following is not growing, that's a signal. And so we look at all three of those together and then combine it with time. And so, because someone might be influential today, but maybe not for the week, or maybe not for a month or 3 months. And so it's been really amazing, because we've seen J.K. Rowling index as an influencer, and it's like, it doesn't make sense. However, she posted 6 or 7 times, and she has like 15 million followers, and there was a ton of engagement, and she introduced a whole bunch of people to crypto, to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so if J.K. Rowling, if she's listening right now, because she absolutely listens to our live streams, if she is, and she all of a sudden starts tweeting about Mantra DAO, you can imagine what's going to happen. And then it's hard to say she's not influential for Mantra DAO when she gets it in front of people. So
if that happens, you would see me running down the streets of Hong Kong with a broom between my legs, waving a wand.
Nimbus 5000.
Absolutely.
I might pay to see that one. How much? Like, what kind
Oh God.
Yeah, no, I'll keep true to that one.
I'll be paying to get him out of jail.
Unbelievable. Well, very, very cool, guys. I mean, we're coming up on the hour here. I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking about the project, and you can kind of feel the passion, with you guys and working on the project. And you're obviously super technical with the way you're putting it together, and it's very thoughtful. So I just applaud you guys on putting that together and coming on and sharing with our community what you're working on. And I'm just excited to see what you guys put together for this thing, because I think it's going to be big, and I'm really, great work.
Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate the support so far. Yeah, it's been awesome. Hopefully we can get back to that #1 spot.
Hey,
push it.
Light it up. Just make sure they know, like, the Twitter handle, and then the site, or where's the best place to find you guys.
Twitter is just @MantraDAO, and then the Telegram is just the Mantra DAO English community.
Mantra DAO official.
Mantra DAO official. So those are probably the 2 best places.
Pretty active on both
of those.
And yeah, you'll see John and myself both on the Telegram pretty frequently.
Very cool.
That's probably best place for any unanswered questions.
All right, swarm that Telegram. All right, JP, Will, thank you both for joining us. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Of course, our